If you've ever taken creatine, I'm going to explain why you might potentially have had some water retention and looked bloated on it. So, when it comes to creatine, as you give your body creatine, you're storing far more water inside of your muscle cells. That gives your muscles a fuller, pumped up look, which is good for the aesthetic reason, but more importantly, in the gym, it gives them that additional hydration and energy they need to be able to perform better, and then that allows you to make better gains in the gym and lift heavier. That's ultimately what is driving the strength and muscle gain. It's not necessarily the creatine. It's just the creatine's kind of that middleman that allows you to perform and hydrate and recover better. Now, the creatine is just essentially going into your muscle cells, but if you have water retention, I'm going to tell you why. If you're storing water, if you feel bloated, you need to do creatine at the right time. You don't want to start creatine when your body is not going to respond well with it. Now, what do I mean by that? If you are somebody that has, say, 15 to 20% body fat, you're already storing some water weight, just like the rest of us. Everybody, even the people, the leanest to the most obese, we all have water inside of us. But because you're in that 15 to 20% body fat range, you're storing a lot of water weight. And just simply by getting your body fat down, that would cut a lot of that water and you would look leaner. I think a lot of people getting their hydration up and getting into a little bit more of a caloric deficit, that would surprise them at how fast they can actually drop water weight and how fast they look way different in the mirror. But if you're holding that water, which is a lot more than maybe somebody that's single digit body fat, you are more likely to store all of that water, have more of that retention, water retention or a bloat look. And the reason for that is your body is not going to emphasize the creatine when it has all the additional water. What I would say and what I have found works best for myself, if you want to get the most from taking creatine monohydrate, don't take creatine when you're in a bulk. Don't take creatine when you have 15 or 20 or 30% body fat. Get yourself to your primed metabolic state. Get your body fat to a point where you're very, very sensitive to the supplements you give your body, meaning you're so lean, you have such a minimal body fat compared to where you used to be, that your body is going to absorb and take in more of that. So with protein, if you have less body fat, there's less in the way for the protein to get in there, right? So you're taking in more of that. And the same thing with creatine. If you're in this middle spot where you have some water weight already and some body fat, the creatine probably isn't going to be your best friend, because you might notice you have more strength in the gym. And if that's your goal, then great. But if your goal is to lose fat, you're just going to hold on to more water. And so what I would say when it comes to when the right time to take creatine, I would say get yourself to a leaner state, meaning like, okay, maybe you go into a cut, or maybe you get leaner than you have before, and then you take creatine, because that's when you're going to get the most from it. If you're that lean already, you have such little water intake in you, and then you start supplementing with creatine, your body is going to just push all of that into your muscle cells. And that's exactly what we want, because then we have our biceps, triceps, shoulders, our back, our quads, calves, even the abdominals, all of them are just filled with more water. So the muscle bellies bulge, right? And so that's really what gives us more of that muscle look. Those muscles are getting bigger, right? And so if we have more water there and less around the fat cells, then we look shredded, but we still have a big, muscular look. If that's something you're going for, then again, consider when is the right time for yourself to take creatine. I would say if you're leaner, all of that water is, you're already, you've already basically taught and trained your body to perform this type of way, and it's gotten very consistent with these actions. So it distributes food very, very well. So say you're a male, right? Say you're within the ranges of 8 to 12% body fat. You are going to get away with a lot more, meaning like if you have a cheat meal or some junk food here and there, like it's not going to affect you nearly as much as the person that has 20 or 25% body fat. because your body is so used to distributing these macronutrients and these calories with ease, because you've put it into this regular routine and schedule. So if you're eating consistently, the same amount of foods throughout the day, and strength training, and maybe even getting in some cardiovascular training, just some walks daily throughout the week, your body knows, okay, this motherfucker is emphasizing building muscle. Clearly, he's given us a bunch of protein, and he's in the gym lifting. Resistance training against load, of course, we're going to have to adapt and grow. But at the same exact time, he's doing a very low, moderate, steady state cardio, which is not that stressful on us, on our body. So we're really just going to shed body fat and just use that as our primary fuel source. And so you now have this schedule where your body knows, okay, this is the time where we're building muscle. This is the time where we're burning fat. The rest of the day, we're really just maintaining and recovering the rest of the body as best we can. So we need all these nutrients. So now you have now taught yourself, okay, I'm getting an X number of grams of protein throughout the day, X number of grams of fat, and I have X number of carbs. And even with calories, okay, now I have a rough idea of calories, macros, and everything like that. That gives you a lot more insight. And now okay, I'm in a consistent spot. I've mastered the variables. I've seen what my body is capable of without having to add in creatine and take the risk of if I retain too much water or look bloated. Because, when I tell you, my abs, I like to have my abs diced, pretty shredded. If you want your abs to look good, a lot of times you don't want water or weight or fat around your lower abdomen. That's where it makes that V shape. So I noticed a few times when I took creatine and I was at, I don't know, upwards of 10 to 13% body fat, I was retaining a little bit more water, and I kind of looked bloated in that V section area, which I was not a big fan of, so I stopped taking it. And the downfall to that is then my strength kind of went down in the gym. So what I, again, would say would be get to that point. Again, get to a lean version of yourself. Not everybody has to be at 5% to be content, especially if you already are at that 15 or 20% range right now. You'd be extremely surprised, going from 18% body fat to 13%, how massive of a change that makes you look. Shoulder definition, arm definition, everything. Abs are popping, just because, you're dropping that water weight, but also your body's doing nothing right now or very minimal, and you're just, you're making a quick change. And so a lot of times it's when I think people talk about these fad diets of, oh, I lost all this weight overnight. What I will say is there is some truth to that. That's not a long-term approach, and that's not anything I do with my clients or whatever. But if you cut yourself from certain foods for a couple days, your body flushes out a lot of the nutrients. Now it's going to gain it all back if you don't keep those habits. So I say start with easy, small ones you can just stack upon over time. Because if you restrict yourself too much in the short term, which is what I've done handfuls of times in my life, unfortunately I only have two hands, but you learn and you maneuver. And so basically, I have done these restrictive diets where I'm not eating sugar, and I'm not eating, say, maybe it's lower carbohydrates, and it's no processed foods, and it's no sugar, and it's 150 grams of protein a day, and it's a day of cardio every day. That is way too much. If you're right now, you're not even going to the gym at all, that's way too much. You're going to burn out, and all that is going to be wasted effort, and you're going to be depressed after, or just feeling down. Why not spread that out? All of that time that you're doing in that 3-4 week span, spread it out over a couple solid habits over the long term, and just notice how your life changes. When I tell you right now, one of the easiest habits that I started doing to get myself back into the routine I wanted to get into was drinking water. I was not getting in a lot of water simply because the water bottle I had broke, and so I didn't have one, and I was kind of just using this 16-ounce water for 5 days straight. And after a while I was I didn't even really drink that much water, maybe a third of a gallon. And I was noticing during that time my abs started to fade, I wasn't as ripped, I had little energy, but the thing is your body adapts to that too, so I wasn't as thirsty, I didn't feel thirsty. And then I just got the gallon again, started drinking this, and now I'm like at a point where at a bare minimum, I'm drinking at least one of these. Some days I get more. Like yesterday, I think I drank closer to 2 or 1.5. But because I'm drinking so much water, my body is now fluctuating and getting rid of all that water weight because it knows. Again, you've trained it in a sense. It knows I'm getting water all of the time. I don't need to hold on to this water because we're adapting to our environment and our body is getting fed water. Like for me personally, every 10, 30 minutes, 15, 30 minutes, like gotta take a sip. Like if you take a big swig like this, that's one sip right there. Boom. Take 5 of them over the span of 2 hours. And then over time, you're like, damn, I'm craving more water. I'm thirsty. Now you're just reducing all your water weight. And this is a simple, small hack that literally will like, for example, one of my clients, I asked him, I was like, hey, can you just start drinking a gallon of water a day? He was drinking like just under a half gallon. And he was like, yeah, of course. I was like, bro, just literally buy a 1 gallon water and just drink it every day. And after like 3-4 days, he lost 4 pounds. And again, I'm not saying that is like something that happens all the time. I did explain like, hey, a lot of that is water weight. It's not true weight. But something as simple as that is like your body's used to barely getting in any water throughout the day over the span of years or months or whatever, maybe decades in his scenario actually. And then you start feeding your body the water and it's like, okay, I'm actually getting in hydration. Like I can kind of get rid of some of this. And then also, all your muscle cells are performing way better in the gym when they're fully hydrated. You're just more optimized. So that's what I would say, like start with something small. But yeah, like you want to start with the smallest, easiest habit because you stack the discipline and it becomes easier. And for example, another habit you could pair with the water one, which will help you start to fluctuate and lose weight and to look leaner. Now, again, that's not the long-term goal, but like if you start drinking a gallon of water a day for the next, say, 14 days, and you notice like, wow, like I'm down 2 or 3 pounds on the scale, or maybe my weight's not down a ton, but my abs are popping way more, and I didn't change really much besides that. It was pretty much just that, drinking more. If you start to notice that, like, hey, that's a pretty good thing. Okay, just continue with that habit. If you feel confident, you feel like you've really gotten that one down, and it's secondhand nature, and you don't even think about it anymore, then okay, like what's another thing you can do? Also working out, I would say start around the same time. Like, of course, I'm not going to say just drink water. And then once you get, like, I'm going to say workout, start your fitness journey too. But say you have the workouts down and whatnot, and you have the water habit down now. Okay, like, what does your protein intake look like? Why made that be important for you? I don't know. If you're trying to lose fat, it's going to help you burn more calories throughout the day. It's going to help you build more muscle. So that muscle is going to help you burn more calories throughout the day. So you're getting the caloric burn whether you maintain the muscle from the protein you eat or from you actually digesting that protein. So both of those two right there, you're burning more calories than if you went for instead a carb or a fat option. Now, the benefit to protein is you're also overcrowding with the good foods. And so it's very difficult for our body to break protein down into body fat. And so if you emphasize it, the overall nutrition with protein, the fats and the carbs typically start to just decrease naturally. Again, it's not that the carbs and fats are bad, but it's that those typically aren't super nutrient dense, so they don't keep us sustained. We don't feel full, and carbohydrates break down to sugar in our bloodstream. So just like if you ever have been a kid and you eat a candy bar and it makes you hungrier, like literally that's what sugar does in our bloodstream. It makes us crave more. And so whether that's from actual candy or any starchy food, most of the time it's going to break down into sugar. So I think a lot of times what I found, not just with myself, but with my clients, those are almost trigger foods, which aren't necessarily bad, but the trigger foods will lead to more, say, worse options. So for example, if you're hungry and you have a piece of toast, that toast is going to hold you over for a short period of time, but because the carbohydrates are fast energy, meaning like you're going to digest them quick and absorb them quick to use as energy, which is why it's helpful to eat carbs before a workout and after. But if you eat the carbs as like your meal, it's gonna hold you over for maybe a little while, but then eventually you're gonna be like, that didn't really hold me over. It kind of just cured my craving for a little bit. Now my blood sugar is gonna really just be up and down, up and down. And you want your blood sugar steady. Like, you want your body in a consistent routine of knowing where the food is and where it comes from, and also what's coming in, what's going out. So I would say, like, hey, if you can get that protein in, then the carbs, like, you're not having those triggering foods. So like, I've had this stuff happen to me personally. Like, I eat, some sort of it happens far less with the whole carbs, the whole starches. But like, if I have something like bread or pizza, that will make me want to now eat another starch, whether that's more bread or pizza, or whether that's like actually like sweets. And then that leads into like, oh, I want more sweets. And then it's like, because I had that starch food, that allowed me to make these 6, 7 other domino effects that led to me eating in a huge surplus, or throwing off my blood sugar levels, and now I'm storing more fat and not absorbing everything because of that, right? So a lot of times these things are trigger foods, and when we give our body carbs, there's really like a flip switch in our body where you have the carb, your body, it really gets difficult to regulate whether it's full or not. And so your body's like, oh, we need more of that. And it doesn't really process it all until after the fact. And at least that's how it kind of feels in a sense. So prioritize protein, because next thing you know, you're like, well, I'm not eating as much of those other sorts of foods. But I think protein is key, and it's also going to help you shed fat, because you getting more protein, you're dropping all that water weight. Because another thing is, when you eat the carbs, your body stores water weight with all those carbs. So how carbs break down into our body, not to get too scientific, we have a carb or carbohydrate, and then we have water. And so basically, water has to attach with that carb before it can get into our body, right? So it basically bonds water with our carbs. So when you eat the carbs, you're also getting all that water, which isn't necessarily bad, but you're not getting as much of that when you eat the protein, for example. So you're getting, all the carbs, which might lead to being a trigger food for you, which lead to like, hey, you eating more and more, which maybe results in you being in a surplus, too many calories given your goals. Or maybe that also leads to like, hey, we're not prioritizing protein. So because of that, we're not maximizing muscle growth. And maximizing muscle growth makes fat loss easier, because you can dumb it down simply to the point of like, if you're not focusing on losing weight, right? You keep your food exactly the same, but you're just focusing on building and toning your muscles. You're going to start to look more cut and more defined, and you will start to use some of that fat as fuel if you keep your food the same. And I'm not saying that's the best approach, but it is true. Like, just simply by focusing on building muscle, you will start to look better. Now, not always necessarily will your weight decrease on the scale, but most of the time you're going to start to look better if you're going from not doing much or doing nothing to the strength training, even if your goal is fat loss. So that's important. But I think what's most important is knowing that it's a double-edged sword. It's not just the strength training, and it's not just how you eat, but it's both, because it's not 50 and 50. It's 100, I believe, submerged. And so if your nutrition is, adjusted to the lifestyle that you live and your training, while your training is adjusted to your nutrition and your lifestyle, and if your lifestyle is adjusted to, be able to fully recover and manage both of these things, plus all of the other priorities in life, you will be in a good spot. A lot of people, I believe, underestimate how much mental energy actually takes a toll on your body's ability to recover. We only have so many calories and so much energy throughout the day to work with. So if you're spending plenty of energy on complex ideas on your brain, solving problems, working, stressed, exercise, physical stress, mental stress, anything, your body is going to start to slow down in recovery. Now, I'm not saying don't do a ton. I'm the type of person that, like, I'm going to try to max out what I can get done in a day, in like physical, mental, spiritual, financial, everything, right? With my relationships, everything. But at the same time, I know that, like, okay, there are certain parts of my day-to-day life that are going to drain my energy more than others. And so, like, if I know that my leg day, for example, in the gym is going to drain me, why am I going to schedule that and do that on a day where I have, I don't know, 5 calls with clients that are extremely important calls all lined up right after? Like, it might help sometimes because, I'm in a good zone from the workout, but it's like if I just trained my ass off in the gym and, like, I'm exhausted, my body's trying to recover from all that, and now I'm trying to throw at it all these mental problems and trying to make it work well. I think you can prime your body to be in a much higher and elevated state, especially mentally, right after a workout. Like, this is where I'm at right now. I just finished my workout. But you don't want to do it to the point where you drain your body, because I did 3 exercises, which is extremely minimal for me. Like, yesterday I did 8. Most days I'm doing 7 to 9 or 10 exercises, 3 to 4 sets of pull. And so, like, 3 exercises wasn't a ton, but it was a small, like, light workout, because I already hit what I needed. And so my second to last day of the week is, keep it short and simple, because, again, back to my point, your body only has so much energy throughout the span of the day, and especially throughout the span of the week. So your body only has X amount of energy throughout the week. If you start your day, if you start your day with, if you start your week with, Monday is say chest day, Tuesday is shoulder day, Wednesday is back, Thursday rest day, Friday legs, Saturday arms. That sounds like a pretty good, like, split right there, just kind of off the top. But if you start to break it down, it might depend. So ultimately, there's no best split. It's really, what are your goals, and, like, how do you want to structure it? There is, like, a lot of importance into how you do things, but when it comes to what days and what you prefer, a lot of that is just choosing what you like best. But if you know that our body starts to wear down with the more energy demands, by the time the week comes around, at the end of the week, you're going to be more depleted than at the beginning of the week. Now, the reason that you guys can all relate to that is if you've ever worked a job, which I guarantee most of the people watching this have. If you work Monday through Friday, by the end of Friday, you're looking forward to the weekend most of the time, because you're tired, right? Like, you're kind of a little bit exhausted. And that's just how it is. And the same thing with the body. If you start on Monday and you lift 4 days, even if you take rest in between, the latter days of the week are going to be probably more tiring than the others, right? Like, you're probably going to have less energy available to work with on those days. Now, does that mean, no, you can structure it to meet those energy demands. So you can make it so that maybe that last day of the week is more focused on mobility, or more focused on technique, and not going as heavy or not as much volume, like how kind of I did today, 3 exercises in and out sort of thing, like really focusing on nice contractions,